Reflection. There comes a time in your life when your mind gets louder than your faith. You toss and you turn at night, worrying about how it's going to work out. Reflection. Trying to figure out the what ifs and the maybes. You replay the conversations, you analyze the details, and you wear yourself down until you are too tired to even pray. Reflection. That's what overthinking does. It robs you of peace, it steals your joy, and it blocks your vision. But hear me, you were never designed to carry the weight of everything. Reflection. God never intended for you to be the problem solver of the universe. He intended for you to trust Him. When you let go of overthinking, reflection, you are not giving up control. You are placing control in the hands of the one who already has the answer. When you overthink, life becomes heavier than it was ever meant to be. Reflection, it's like walking through your day, carrying invisible suitcases filled with rocks. Nobody can see them, but you feel the weight pressing down on your chest and pulling on your shoulders. Reflection, you wake up already tired because your mind has been running a marathon all night, thinking about what you said yesterday, what could go wrong tomorrow. Reflection, and what you still don't have figured out today. Overthinking creates burdens that aren't even yours to carry. You find yourself exhausted by battles that never even made it to reality. Reflection, drained by problems that live only in your imagination. Think about how often you've replayed one conversation in your mind. Someone said something small, maybe even insignificant. Reflection, but your mind grabbed it and built a story around it. You start thinking, did they mean this? What if they're upset? What if I should have said that instead? Before long, reflection. You've created a storm out of a single drop of rain. The person who spoke those words has already moved on with their day, but you're still trapped in the prison of your thoughts. Reflection. That's the power of overthinking. It ties you to chains that aren't even real. And sometimes overthinking comes from fear of failure. You're about to start something new, maybe a job, reflection, a project, or even a relationship, and instead of stepping forward, your mind bombards you with every possible scenario where it could go wrong. You start imagining the mistakes you might make. Reflection. The judgment you might face, the disappointment that might come. You haven't even taken the first step, but you've already talked yourself out of moving. Reflection. You've put the weight of failure on your back before you've even tried. That's why it feels so heavy, because you're carrying a future that hasn't even arrived yet. Reflection. Overthinking magnifies the past too. It whispers, remember what happened last time. Remember how you failed. Remember how you were hurt. And so you carry memories like luggage. Reflection, dragging them into every new opportunity. You rehearse the pain, the regret, the missed chances, as if living them once wasn't enough. The past is over. Reflection, but overthinking keeps it alive in your mind, and you bear its weight as though it just happened yesterday. You end up walking around with a load that doesn't belong in your present. Reflection, daily life proves this truth in so many ways. Imagine someone driving their car with both feet pressing down on the brakes and the gas pedal at the same time. That's what overthinking does. Reflection, you want to move forward, but your mind is pressing on the brakes. You're revving the engine, burning fuel, but you're not going anywhere. No wonder you feel drained. Reflection, the car wasn't built to be driven like that, and neither were you. You were built to live, to breathe, to trust, to walk step by step. But overthinking keeps you locked in place. Reflection, burning energy with no progress. Have you noticed how a small worry can grow bigger the more you think about it? It's like holding a glass of water. At first, reflection is nothing, just a little weight in your hand, but hold it for 10 minutes, your hand begins to ache. Hold it for an hour, and your muscles start to shake. Hold it for a day, reflection, and you'll be in pain. The weight of the water never changed, but the longer you held it, the heavier it became. Overthinking works the same way. The problem itself may be small, reflection, but when you hold it in your mind too long, it begins to feel unbearable. Many people carry burdens that belong to God. Reflection. We worry about things that are beyond our control, how the future will unfold, how people will respond, how every detail will come together. But that was never our responsibility. Reflection. Your job is not to carry every unknown. Your job is to walk faithfully with what you know today. Overthinking convinces you that you need to manage everything. But in reality, reflection, you only need to manage what is in your hand right now. The rest belongs to the one who sees the end from the beginning. Think about how children live. Reflection. A child doesn't worry about whether the bills will be paid or whether there's food in the refrigerator. They trust that their parents will handle it. They don't wake up at 3 a.m. Reflection. Pacing the floor, wondering if the lights will stay on tomorrow. They go to sleep, carefree, because they know someone bigger than them is in charge. Reflection. That's the kind of trust you're supposed to have. Overthinking happens when you try to become the parent of your own life instead of trusting the one who already promised to provide. Reflection. Overthinking makes life heavier than it was ever designed to be. The truth is, many of the burdens you carry are not yours. You are carrying fears of what could go wrong. Reflection. Regrets of what already went wrong, and responsibilities that don't even belong in your hands. And while you are weighed down with what's unnecessary, reflection, you miss the beauty of what's right in front of you. How many sunsets have passed without you noticing because your mind was too busy with tomorrow? Reflection. How many moments of laughter have you missed because you were replaying yesterday's pain? Letting go of overthinking is not about ignoring reality. Reflection. It's about refusing to carry what isn't yours. It's choosing to say, this weight does not belong to me. I will do my part, reflection, but I will not carry the part that only God can handle. It's learning to set down the glass of water before your hand goes numb. Reflection. It's deciding that your mind will not be a prison but a place of peace. And when you release those burdens, you'll notice something shift inside you. Suddenly, the same day feels lighter. Reflection. The same challenges don't overwhelm you as much. You're not drained before you start. You actually have energy to move. You can breathe. You can rest. You can live. And most of all, reflection. You can trust, because the burdens that aren't yours were never meant to be yours. They belong to the one who can carry them without growing weary. Before you even faced that challenge, reflection. Before you even saw the problem show up at your doorstep, God had already prepared the solution. That's the beauty of His timing. He's not reacting to life as it unfolds the way we do. Reflection. He is already ahead, orchestrating every detail, weaving together pieces that you cannot yet see. When you're overthinking, you're caught in the middle of what looks like uncertainty. Reflection. But in God's eyes, the ending is already written. What you're losing sleep over tonight is something He has already handled long before you took your first breath. Think about it this way. Reflection. When you walk into a theater to watch a movie, you're experiencing it scene by scene. You don't know what's coming next. You're surprised by the twists and turns, the highs and lows. Reflection. But the director, he already knows the end and he already wrote the script. He already filmed the last scene before you even watched the first one. That's how God operates. Reflection. We're sitting in the middle of our story, anxious about how it will all unfold, while He's already sitting in eternity, smiling because He knows the conclusion. Reflection. You may not see the resolution yet, but He's already rolled the credits. Many times we waste our strength trying to figure out how to untangle the knots of life. We ask ourselves, reflection, what if this happens? How will I fix that? What if the door doesn't open? But the truth is, God is never caught off guard. Reflection. The problem you're worrying about right now has already been answered in His plan. You're pacing the floor, but He's already cleared the path. You're carrying the weight of worry, reflection, but He's already lifted the outcome. Think back to moments in your life when you thought it was over. Maybe you lost a job and you didn't know how you'd provide. Reflection. Maybe you faced sickness and didn't know how you'd recover. Maybe your heart was broken and you didn't see how you could smile again. In those moments, all you could see was the problem. Reflection. But looking back now, can you see how it worked out? Can you see how doors opened, how healing came, how strength rose up inside you? At the time, you didn't know how it would unfold. Reflection. But God already had it handled. You're standing here today as proof that He was ahead of you even then. There's a story about a child who loved puzzles. Every time they opened the box, reflection, they would get frustrated because the pieces didn't make sense. They would try to force them together, trying to make the picture complete on their own. But the parent, reflection, who had already seen the picture on the box, would calmly guide them. The child didn't understand how the broken, scattered pieces could ever become something beautiful. But the parent knew. Reflection. In the same way, your life may look like scattered pieces right now, but God already sees the completed picture. While you're frustrated with the pieces, reflection, He's already holding the vision of the masterpiece. Overthinking blinds you to this truth. It convinces you that you have to be the director, the solver, the planner, the answerer. Reflection. But when you realize that God has already worked it out, your perspective changes. Suddenly, the storm doesn't look as frightening because you know peace has already been spoken over it. Reflection. Suddenly, the mountain doesn't look as impossible because you know the path has already been carved through it. Suddenly, reflection. The tears don't feel as hopeless because you know joy has already been scheduled to come in the morning. Sometimes the delays we face are not denials. They're simply God aligning the pieces. Reflection. What feels like a closed door today may be protection for tomorrow. What feels like a setback may actually be preparation. You don't see the full design, but He does. Reflection. That's why overthinking becomes a thief of peace, because it makes you forget that God's plan is already complete. You're stuck in the middle of the process, reflection, but he's already holding the finished product. Imagine walking through a maze. From your perspective, all you see are walls. You turn left, there's a wall. You turn right, another wall. Reflection, you get frustrated, anxious, even scared. But imagine if you could rise above the maze and see it from the top. Suddenly, reflection, what looked confusing and endless would reveal a clear path leading to the exit. That's what God sees. You're in the maze, but he's above it, guiding your steps, already knowing the way out. Reflection, you may not see it yet, but he's already prepared it. Think about how we use GPS. You type in your destination, and the device calculates a route before you even leave the driveway. Reflection, it knows where the turns are, where the traffic is, where the roadblocks are. If you take the wrong turn, it recalculates to get you back on track. That's exactly how God operates. Reflection, before you even encountered that detour, he had a route ready. Before you even made that mistake, he had a way to bring you back. You're panicking because of one wrong turn, reflection. But he's calm because he knows the destination hasn't changed. This is why you don't have to exhaust yourself trying to figure it all out. God has already been where you're going. Reflection, he's already provided what you'll need. He's already spoken into the very situation that has you tossing and turning tonight. The ending is not a question mark for him. It's a period. Reflection, it's done. It's settled. It's complete. So instead of letting overthinking rob you, learn to rest in this truth. What feels uncertain to you is already handled by God. Reflection, the future you're so anxious about is already written by the one who promised never to leave you. You don't need all the answers when you know the one who already holds it. Reflection, your job is not to predict the future. Your job is to trust the one who prepared it. The next time your mind tries to spiral, the next time you feel the storm rising inside you, remind yourself, reflection. Before this problem ever showed up, God already worked it out. Before the worry ever knocked on your door, he already had the key. Before the storm ever formed, he had already declared peace. Reflection, you're not waiting for him to figure it out. Reflection, he's waiting for you to trust that he already has. You cannot truly live in today if your mind is trapped in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's anxieties. Reflection, overthinking drains your energy because it pulls you away from the only place where life actually happens, the present moment. Many people wake up each morning already weary. Reflection, not because they worked hard the day before, but because their mind never rested. Their body was on the bed, but their thoughts were pacing the floor. They tried to sleep, but instead of resting, reflection. They rehearsed conversations, replayed mistakes, and worried about problems that hadn't even arrived yet. By the time the sun rises, they feel like they've already run a marathon. Reflection, that's the exhausting cycle of overthinking. It robs you of strength before the day even begins. Think about someone carrying a phone with too many apps open at once. The battery drains faster. Reflection, the phone overheats, and eventually it slows down or even shuts off. The phone wasn't designed to run everything all the time, and neither were you. Reflection, when you keep running all the scenarios of the past and the future in your head, your spirit overheats, your energy drains, and your pace slows down. You feel heavy. Reflection, not because the day is too hard, but because your mind is carrying more than today requires. Overthinking about the past drains today because you're reliving what can't be changed. Reflection, you replay words you wish you hadn't said, moments you wish you had handled differently, opportunities you think you missed. But no amount of overthinking can rewrite yesterday. Reflection, it's like trying to fight the waves of the ocean. You wear yourself out against something you can never stop. Instead of healing, overthinking keeps old wounds open. Reflection, you end up carrying yesterday's pain into today's opportunities, making it impossible to fully experience what is new because you're too busy nursing what is old. Reflection, and then there's the future. How many times have you lost sleep over something that never even happened? You worry about what tomorrow might bring, what could go wrong, what people might say. Reflection, how things might fall apart. You live through disasters in your mind that never touch your reality. But while you're fighting battles in your imagination, reflection, you're draining the energy you need for today. By the time tomorrow actually comes, you're too tired to handle it. Overthinking tricks you into fighting wars that don't exist. Reflection, while leaving you unprepared for the ones that do. There's a powerful lesson in nature that birds in the morning. They don't stay awake all night worrying if there will be food tomorrow. Reflection, they rest. And when the morning comes, they go out and find what they need. They don't carry the weight of yesterday's lack or tomorrow's uncertainty. They live in today. Reflection, that's why they sing at sunrise, they are free. But people with all our intelligence and planning, reflection, often lie more burdened than the birds because we let overthinking steal our rest and silence our song. Daily life gives so many examples of how overthinking drains us. Reflection. Imagine a student studying for an exam. Instead of focusing on the material, they spend hours thinking, what if I fail? What if I forget? Reflection. What if I disappoint everyone? By the time the test begins, their energy is gone, not because they didn't prepare, but because they wasted strength on fear instead of focus. Reflection. Or think of someone in a relationship replaying every word their partner said, analyzing tone, body language, and hidden meaning. Reflection. They're not enjoying the love in front of them because they're drowning in doubts inside of them. Their overthinking builds walls where trust could have grown. Reflection. Overthinking not only steals energy, it steals joy. You can be in the middle of a beautiful moment and miss it completely because your mind is somewhere else. Reflection. You can sit at a dinner table surrounded by laughter and warmth, but be so caught up in thoughts of tomorrow's bills or yesterday's arguments that you don't even taste the food. Reflection, that's the tragedy of overthinking. You live everywhere but here. And the here is the only place where peace, love, and life can be experienced. But there is another way. Reflection. Rest is not found in the absence of problems. It's found in the presence of trust. Life will always bring challenges, but when you believe that you are not facing them alone, you can breathe. Reflection. You can lay your head down at night and actually rest. Not because every detail is solved, but because you trust that tomorrow's strength will meet tomorrow's needs. Reflection. When you stop overthinking, you begin to conserve your energy for what actually matters. Instead of being drained by fears of the unknown, reflection, you're strengthened by confidence in the one who holds the unknown. Think of a lamp plugged into a socket. If it's plugged in, the light shines effortlessly. But if you unplug it, reflection, no matter how hard you try to shake it or force it, it cannot shine. Overthinking is like living unplugged. You're trying to create your own light by the power of worry, reflection, but you just end up empty. Trust is plugging back in. It's connecting to the true source of strength and peace. When you are connected, you don't have to burn yourself out. Reflection. The power flows naturally. So many people think they're exhausted because of life, when in reality, they're exhausted because of how they think about life. Reflection. The real burden is not the challenge in front of them, but the endless thoughts running inside them. That's why when you learn to quiet your mind, you find strength you didn't know you had. Reflection. Suddenly, the same job doesn't feel as heavy. The same challenges don't feel as overwhelming. The same day feels lighter. The difference is not the situation, it's the state of your mind. Reflection. When you stop letting overthinking drain your energy, you make space for peace, for joy, and for clarity. You wake up with strength instead of dread. Reflection. You move through your day with focus instead of fear. And when you lay your head down at night, you actually rest. Reflection. Knowing that tomorrow will take care of itself because you're not carrying it ahead of time. That's when you finally discover the freedom you were created for. Reflection. To live in today with a peaceful mind, a grateful heart. Reflection. And a spirit that trusts instead of worries. Faith and overthinking cannot live in the same space because they speak two different languages. Faith says, reflection, I believe it will happen. Overthinking says, but what if it doesn't? Faith whispers, God has a way. Overthinking shouts, reflection, you need a backup plan. The two cannot stand together in harmony because one builds and the other tears down. One lifts your spirit and the other weighs it down. Reflection, one moves you forward and the other keeps you frozen in place. Think about standing at a door. Faith tells you to knock, believing that it will open. Reflection. Overthinking tells you to analyze whether the door is strong enough, whether someone will answer, what you'll do if no one responds. Reflection. And how foolish you'll look if you knock and it doesn't open. By the time you've thought through all those scenarios, the opportunity has passed. Reflection. That's the power of overthinking. It makes you miss doors that faith would have walked through. Life gives us countless examples of this struggle. A young man dreams of starting a business. Reflection. His faith stirs inside him, telling him you have the gifts, you have the vision, and God will provide the way. But overthinking sneaks in saying, what if you lose everything? Reflection. What if people laugh? What if you're not good enough? He spends months, even years planning, calculating, hesitating until the fire inside him grows cold. Reflection. His faith was strong enough to launch him, but his overthinking chained him to the ground. Or consider someone who has been hurt in the past. Faith tells them, you can love again. Reflection. You can trust again. You can heal. But overthinking replays the heartbreak, the betrayal, the pain. It whispers, what if they hurt you again? What if you open up and they leave? Reflection. What if you give your heart and it breaks? So instead of stepping into love, they stay locked in loneliness. Not because faith wasn't present, but because overthinking was louder. Reflection. This battle plays out every day in small decisions too. You may feel led to encourage someone with a kind word. Faith nudges you to speak. Reflection, reminding you that your words might be exactly what that person needs. But overthinking says, what if they don't care? What if they think you're strange? Reflection, what if they misinterpret what you say? And so you stay silent and the opportunity to lift the spirit is lost. Faith and overthinking are like light and darkness. When light shines, darkness cannot stay. When faith rises, overthinking has to leave. But if you let fear and worry fill your mind, faith becomes suffocated. Reflection, that's why it's impossible to live in faith and overthinking at the same time. One will always dominate the other. Think of a farmer planting seeds. Faith says, reflection, I believe something will grow even though I can't see it yet. Overthinking says, what if the soil isn't good enough? What if the rain doesn't come? Reflection, what if pests eat the harvest? If the farmer listens to overthinking, he won't plant anything and there will be no harvest. But if he listens to faith, he will sow his seed, and in time, reflection, the ground will yield fruit. The seed responds not to worry, but to action rooted in belief. Overthinking wants certain before moving. Faith moves even when there is no certainty. Reflection, overthinking demands answers to every question. Faith rests knowing that not every answer is needed to begin. Overthinking builds walls of fear. Faith builds bridges of trust. Reflection, if you want to live a life of impact, you have to choose which voice you will allow to guide you. Reflection, daily life shows us that the greatest achievements often come from those who chose faith over overthinking. The student who applied for a scholarship not knowing if they'd get it, reflection, but stepped out anyway. The woman who launched her small business with just an idea and a prayer, instead of waiting until she had every resource. The man who forgave, reflection, even though overthinking told him to hold on to anger. These moments of faith led to doors opening, lives changing, and healing flowing, not because everything was guaranteed, reflection, but because they chose to trust instead of doubt. Faith doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you trust that God is greater than reality. Overthinking looks at the size of the storm, reflection. Faith looks at the one who calms storms with a word. Overthinking looks at the giant in the valley. Faith looks at the God who equips you with a stone and a sling. Overthinking sees impossibility. Reflection, faith sees opportunity. They cannot coexist because they pull your vision in opposite directions. Imagine holding two radios tuned to different stations at the same time. Reflection, one plays a song of hope and courage, the other blares fear and doubt. The noise is unbearable, and you can't enjoy either. Reflection, that's what happens when you try to live with both faith and overthinking. The signals clash, and you end up confused, tired, and paralyzed. But when you tune your heart to faith, reflection, the noise of overthinking fades away, and you hear the clear melody of trust and peace. When you look back over your life, you'll realize that the times you chose faith, reflection, even when it didn't make sense, were the moments that shaped you the most. Those were the times when doors opened, strength rose, and miracles happened. The times you gave in to overthinking, reflection, those were the moments you stood still, missed opportunities, and let fear write the story. You have to decide which one will guide your steps. Faith and overthinking cannot share the same space. Reflection, one will rise and the other will fall. If you want to live boldly, you have to silence the voice of doubt and give room for the voice of trust. Every time your mind says, reflection, well, what if it fails? Let your faith answer, what if it works? Every time your thoughts say, what if you fall? Let your faith answer, what if I fly? And when you choose faith, reflection, you'll discover that the very things overthinking tried to keep you from were the very places where your greatest growth was waiting. When you overthink, reflection, you often delay the very breakthrough you've been praying for. Reflection, overthinking is like standing at the edge of an open door but never stepping through because you're busy analyzing what's on the other side. You keep pacing, calculating, and second guessing, reflection, and all the while the opportunity that was meant for you slips away. Breakthroughs don't wait forever. Some of the greatest blessings in life are missed, not because they weren't offered, reflection, because overthinking made us too afraid to act when the moment came. Think about someone who wants to swim. They stand at the pool's edge, dipping a toe in the water, pulling it back, reflection, pacing, staring, wondering if it's too cold, too deep, or too risky. They spend hours on the edge, while others who simply jumped and are already swimming, laughing, and enjoying the water. Reflection, overthinking works the same way. It convinces you that thinking more will somehow prepare you better, but in reality it just keeps you stuck on the edge, watching life pass you by. Reflection, life is full of doors that require courage to walk through. Maybe it's applying for a job that feels beyond your qualifications. Reflection, maybe it's starting a project that's been stirring in your heart for years. Maybe it's speaking up when silence has kept you bound. Overthinking whispers, you need more information. Reflection. You need more resources. You need more time, but the truth is you already have enough to start. The delay doesn't come from lack. It comes from doubt, reflection. And while you're waiting for the perfect moment, the breakthrough is waiting on you to simply step. Consider a farmer who looks at his field every day, holding seeds in his hands, reflection. He analyzes the weather, worries about the soil, and wonders if rain will come. He keeps checking and calculating, but never actually plants the seeds. Months pass, and when harvest time arrives, reflection, his field is empty, not because he didn't have seeds, but because he delayed planting them. That's exactly what overthinking does. Your breakthrough is like a harvest, reflection, but it cannot come unless you sow in faith. Delaying the step delays the blessing. Daily life proves this truth again and again. Reflection. A student may wait until they feel completely ready to apply for a scholarship only to miss the deadline. Reflection. An entrepreneur may keep refining their idea until someone else launches a similar business. A writer may keep editing their book, telling themselves it's not good enough yet. Reflection. While the story that could have changed lives never leaves the desk drawer. Reflection. The opportunities don't vanish because they weren't meant for them. They vanish because overthinking locked them in hesitation. Overthinking disguises itself as wisdom. Reflection. It makes you believe you're being careful, responsible, or thoughtful. But there's a fine line between preparation and paralysis. Preparation gets you ready to move. Reflection. Paralysis keeps you from moving at all. The difference lies in action. You can plan, research, and calculate all you want, but at some point, faith demands that you step. Reflection. Breakthroughs don't come to those who endlessly think. They come to those who dare to act. Think of the people who made history. They didn't wait until every detail was perfect. Reflection. They moved when the vision stirred inside them. The Wright brothers didn't wait until they had the perfect design for an airplane. They experimented, failed, reflection, and tried again until flight became reality. If they had overthought the risk of crashing, we might still be walking instead of flying. Every breakthrough in history has been the child of faith, reflection, not of endless overthinking. The same is true in personal life. How many friendships, careers, or relationships never blossom because someone hesitated too long? You think, reflection, I'll call them tomorrow, I'll apply next week, I'll start next year. But while you're waiting, time keeps moving. Opportunities expire. Breakthroughs are delayed. Reflection. Overthinking convinces you that waiting longer will give you more control, but often waiting longer only makes you weaker. Courage fades the longer you postpone it. Reflection. It's like standing at a traffic light. The green light comes on, but you sit there frozen. Cars behind you start honking, urging you forward. Reflection. But you're too busy wondering what's around the corner, whether the road is smooth or if you'll miss a turn. By the time you finally decide to move, the light turns red again. Reflection. And you're stuck in place. Breakthroughs work the same way. Life gives you green lights, moments to move forward, but overthinking keeps your foot on the brake. Reflection. The light won't stay green forever. The good news is that once you recognize this pattern, you can break it. You don't have to keep delaying your blessing. Reflection. You can decide to step forward even when everything isn't clear. You can decide to trust that the God who opened the door will also provide the strength to walk through it. Reflection. Breakthroughs don't require you to see the entire staircase. They require you to take the first step. Reflection. There's a story about a man standing at the edge of a canyon with a rope bridge stretched across. He's terrified, analyzing whether the ropes will hold, whether the planks will break. Reflection. Whether the wind will knock him off. He spends hours thinking, while another person comes, takes a breath, and starts walking. Halfway across, the fearful man is still on the edge. Reflection. Still analyzing. The difference isn't that one knew more than the other. It's that one trusted enough to move. Breakthrough belongs to those who move. Reflection. Overthinking delays your breakthrough because it keeps you stuck in what if instead of stepping into what is. The miracle you're waiting for is often on the other side of obedience. Reflection. The opportunity you're praying for is often waiting on the other side of action. The freedom you crave is often one decision away. Reflection. Don't let overthinking keep you locked out of the very blessings that were designed for you. Your breakthrough isn't waiting for more information. It's waiting for your courage. Reflection. It's waiting for your step. It's waiting for your yes. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to know every detail. You just need to trust that if God opened the door, reflection, He already equipped you to walk through it. Stop delaying. Stop calculating. Stop doubting. Take the step, because the longer you wait, reflection, the longer you postpone the life that was meant for you. We often think of surrender as weakness, as losing, as giving up. But in reality, surrender is not defeat. It's victory God's way. Reflection. When you let go of the tight grip on your plans, your worries, your endless calculations, you're not walking away powerless. You're stepping into a higher kind of power, reflection. One that doesn't rely on your limited strength, but on the limitless strength of God. The truth is, you were never designed to control everything. You were designed to trust the one who does. Reflection. Picture someone carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones. They're walking uphill, struggling, gasping for breath, but refusing to set the load down. People around them offer help, reflection, but they keep saying, "No, I can handle it." Their pride won't allow them to let go, even though the weight is breaking them. That's what life looks like when we refuse to surrender. Reflection. We keep insisting we can handle it all, that we can solve it all, that we can fix it all. But the truth is, the more we hold on, the heavier it becomes. Reflection. Surrender isn't throwing the backpack away. It's finally setting it down in the hands of the one who knows how to carry it without stumbling. Reflection. Everyday life gives us countless examples of this. Think of a child who refuses to let their parent tie their shoelaces. They fumble, they twist, they get frustrated, and eventually, reflection. They sit in tears because the knot is a tangled mess. But the moment they hand the shoe to their parent, it's tied neatly and quickly. Reflection. The child didn't lose by giving up. They gained freedom to run. That's the beauty of surrender. You're not losing control. You're gaining peace, gaining clarity, reflection, gaining the ability to move forward without being weighed down what you were never meant to carry. We often confuse surrender with quitting. Quitting says, "I can't do this anymore," reflection, "so I give up." Surrender says, "I don't have to do this on my own anymore, so I hand it over." Quitting is hopeless, is hopeful. Quitting drains you, surrender fills you, reflection. Quitting ends a journey, surrender begins a new one. The difference lies in who you trust. When you quit, you trust failure. When you surrender, you trust God, reflection. Think about someone drowning in water. The more they fight and thrash, the quicker they sink. But the moment they relax, letting the water hold them, they float. Life is the same way. Reflection. The more you fight for control, the more you wear yourself out. But when you surrender, when you let go of the frantic need to manage everything, you rise. Reflection. The water that once threatened to drown you becomes the very thing that carries you. That's what surrender does. Many breakthroughs in life only come after surrender. Reflection. There are people who struggled with decisions, worries, and fears for years until they finally whispered, "God, I can't carry this anymore." And in that moment of surrender, peace entered. Reflection. Doors opened. Healing began. The problem didn't always disappear overnight, but the weight lifted instantly. Because when you let go, you make room for God to step in. Reflection. He doesn't force his way into hands that are clenched tight, but the moment you open them, he fills them. Daily life teaches us this lesson again and again. Reflection. Think about someone trying to control every aspect of their career. They plan each step, calculate every move, and try to predict every outcome. But the more they control, reflection, the more anxious they become. Opportunities slip by because they're too focused on what they can't control. Then there's the person who says, "I'll do my best," reflection, "but I'll also trust the timing of God." They walk with a lighter spirit, and suddenly doors open they never could have forced. The difference isn't talent, it's surrender, reflection. Even relationships reflect this truth. When you try to control every word, every action, every outcome, love feels heavy. You're always on edge, always fearful, always second guessing. Reflection. But when you surrender, when you trust that love can flow naturally without your constant management, you find joy again. Peace enters not because the other person became perfect, reflection, because you stop trying to script every moment. Surrender makes space for love to breathe. Surrender is not about giving up responsibility. Reflection, it's about knowing the boundary between what is yours and what is God's. You do what you can, study for the exam, apply for the job. Reflection, care for your health, but you don't carry the weight of outcomes you cannot control. That's surrender. It's the wisdom to say, "This part is mine," reflection, "but that part is yours." And when you live like that, you move with freedom instead of fear. Think of someone holding onto a rope that's burning their hands. The more they grip, reflection, the more it hurts. The solution isn't to grip tighter, it's to let go. That's what many of us are doing with our worries and plans. We hold on until our souls are blistered, reflection, all the while believing that if we just think harder or try harder, things will change. But the truth is, change comes the moment you release it. Reflection, the rope isn't meant for you to hold, it's meant for you to hand over. When you surrender, you don't shrink, you expand. Reflection. You stop being limited by your own abilities and step into the limitless strength of God. Reflection. You stop confining yourself to your narrow vision and open yourself to a bigger picture you couldn't see before. The world tells you surrender is weakness, But in the kingdom of God, reflection, surrender is where true power begins. It's where battles are won, where peace is found, and where breakthroughs are birthed. So don't mistake surrender for defeat. Reflection, don't confuse it with failure. It's not about losing, it's about winning God's way. When you let go of your need to control, you gain freedom. When you release your grip on fear, reflection, you gain peace. When you surrender your plans, you gain his promises, reflection. And what he gives in exchange for surrender is always greater than what you were trying so hard to hold on to. Peace is not found in solving every problem, fixing every situation, reflection, or having every answer. Peace comes when you realize that you were never meant to control it all. Peace comes when you finally say, God, I trust you with this, and truly mean it. Reflection, overthinking steals that peace. It keeps your mind running at midnight, replaying conversations, predicting outcomes, calculating possibilities. It makes you restless when you should be resting. Reflection. But the moment you release those racing thoughts into God's hands, a calmness enters that no amount of planning could ever bring. Think about the way a child sleeps. Reflection. When a child climbs into their parents' arms at night, they don't stay awake worrying about tomorrow. They don't wonder if there will be food, clothes, or safety. Reflection. They rest deeply because they trust that their parent is awake, alert, and watching over them. That's what it looks like when you let God handle what you can't. You rest. Reflection. Not because life is free of problems, but because you know someone greater is awake when you sleep. Reflection. Peace doesn't mean the storm disappears. It means you found a way to stay calm while the storm rages. There's a story of people traveling by plane. The ride gets bumpy. Reflection. Turbulence shakes the cabin, and passengers start to panic. But in the middle of it all, there's a little child coloring in a book, completely calm. Reflection. When someone asks the child why they aren't afraid, the child replies, because my dad is the pilot. That's the picture of peace. When you know who is in control, reflection, you stop panicking in turbulence. Everyday life shows us how peace is stolen when we overthink. Imagine waiting for medical results. Your mind races. What if it's bad? Reflection. What if I can't handle it? What if my whole life changes? You live days of torment over something that hasn't even been revealed yet. Then the report finally comes, reflection, and it's either better than you thought, or even if it's challenging, you realize you survived the waiting. Overthinking made the waiting worse than the reality. Reflection. Peace could have been yours all along if you had trusted instead of tortured yourself with fear. Or think about someone who loses sleep over their finances. They count and recount the bills, reflection, stress over numbers, play out worst-case scenarios in their head. They're exhausted, worried, and still nothing changes. Then there's another person in the same situation who says, reflection, I'll do my part, but I'll also trust God to provide what I can't. That person may not have more money in the moment, but they have something far more valuable. They have peace, reflection, and peace gives them strength, creativity, and calmness that eventually open doors the anxious person couldn't see. Peace is not passive. It's not sitting back doing nothing. Reflection, peace is active trust. It's choosing to calm your thoughts, choosing to rest when your mind wants to run, choosing to believe that God is working behind the scenes even when you can't see it. Reflection, peace is a discipline. Just like exercise builds muscle, surrender builds peace. The more you practice handing things over, the lighter your heart becomes. Reflection, think of how much energy overthinking drains from you. It's like leaving every light in your house on all night. The electricity bill skyrockets. Reflection, but it doesn't make the house any safer or brighter than it needs to be. In the same way, overthinking burns up your energy without adding solutions. Peace, however, reflection, is like turning off the unnecessary lights and trusting the sun to rise in the morning. It's wiser, calmer, and far more sustainable. Peace doesn't mean ignoring reality. Reflection, it doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging the reality, but choosing to anchor yourself in God's promises instead of your fears. Reflection, a sailor doesn't deny the waves. He just drops an anchor so the ship won't drift. That's what peace does. It keeps you grounded when life tries to toss you around. Reflection, one of the most beautiful things about peace is how contagious it is. When one person in a family, a workplace, or a friendship chooses peace instead of panic, it spreads. Reflection, their calmness becomes an anchor for others. Think about a household where everyone is frantic except the mother, who calmly says, we'll get through this. Her peace steadies the family. Reflection, or a workplace where deadlines are tight and while everyone else is stressed, one person remains steady, focused, and calm. Their peace becomes a gift to the entire team. Reflection, when you let God handle your worries, the peace you gain doesn't just bless you, it blesses everyone around you. Daily life will always give you reasons to overthink. Reflection, there will always be bills, relationships, health concerns, deadlines, and uncertainties. But peace isn't about waiting for a problem-free life. Reflection. Peace is about learning to live free of constant inner chaos. No matter what the outside looks like, the world may still be noisy, but inside you are still. That peace is priceless. Reflection. You can't buy it in a store, you can't earn it by working harder, and you can't force it by controlling more. Reflection. Peace is a gift from God that becomes yours when you release the need to manage everything. It is a calm that tells you, even if I don't know what tomorrow holds, reflection, I know who holds tomorrow. So when your thoughts start to spiral, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, reflection, what am I trying to control that isn't mine to control? Then picture yourself placing it into God's hands. It's in that release that peace enters. Reflection, it may not change the situation instantly, but it will change you instantly. And when you are changed, you carry a strength and serenity that no storm can steal. Peace is the reward of trust. Reflection, it's the fruit of surrender. And once you taste it, you'll never want to go back to the exhausting weight of overthinking again. Reflection, because peace doesn't come when life is perfect. It comes when you finally let God handle what only He can handle.